All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm your host for today's broadcast, Insane Lair 13, as we are preparing to get underway for the 7th different P1R SEC Enduro of the year, and it's going to be coming down here at Bathurst. Get ready, people, because this could be an interesting race. Today's event, we are looking at a possibility of rain showers. Not a guarantee, it's only a 40% chance, but there is a possibility of rain showers in the middle part of the first stint in today's race. So, rain and the ability to actively react to it could have a big impact in the way today's event turns out. The other thing to consider, though, is that if that does not happen, Bathurst is notoriously difficult to pass at. It is possible to get a great amount of draft on the run down to turn 2 or going down the chase and make a nice, easy overtake by doing that. But, generally speaking, we are not anticipating to see very many, if any, overtakes, basically from turn 3 all the way until the start of the chase. So, if a driver gets a really good start, gets ahead of everyone else going into the mountain section, they could theoretically hold that position for a long time. What is that going to mean? Well, that may mean that while we may not be looking at as much driver-on-driver overtakes being made on circuit today, what we could be looking at instead is a lot of deviation on tire strategies, trying to offset your pit stops by a lap or two to try and get ahead or further behind somebody so you can run in more clean air. Again, do remember that in these events, it is overall distance that wins. We've had several very close events thus far already this season. Most recently, Watkins Glen went really close with 3 different teams all around top of each other fighting for that victory there to the last minute of the last stint. And that all came down to who had the overall distance advantage. It will be the same thing here. Overall distance is what matters. For those of you who are not familiar with how SEC and P1R works, these events are going to be 2-hour stints. This is not 2 hours in the way that Tora does 2 hours, where you only run about 100 minutes and you spend 20 minutes sitting around while somebody goes ahead and ticks off distance calculations. This game has shown enough stability and accuracy when it comes to recording distances. This series uses the actual game-given distances in today's event. So, keep that in mind. You will be running the full 2 hours in all 3 stints today. Real quickly, let's look at some of the drivers who are going to be running in today's event. We're going to start from the top and work our way down. I said we're going to start from the top and work our way down. Matt Klim is going to be in one of the Acura entries, along with NDL Beats, and they are back in that number 79 Acura. Then you have Rough Driving, who is in the 415 Porsche. ZR Derluki is in the McLaren, but for some reason the game does not want to show that whatsoever. Then you get to a big glut of Chevy C8s. P1R Coastal is in a Chevy. VER Betrayed, this is one of a few new teams showing up this month. VER Betrayed is going to be in the number 22 Chevy. VER Spark is going to be in the number 93 Chevy. Number 93 had originally been a Dodge earlier in the season, but that team has pulled out of the series. NWR Zula is also going to be representing the Chevrolet, and NWR Shadow in number 16 will also be in the Chevrolet. Leisure is going to be one of the very few Dodges left in that number 64 machine. Firedale is showing up as the Audi finally starts getting some representation again. They are in the 85 machine. NDL Daniel is in the Legacy BMW M8 number 51 machine. Hilfiger is going to be back in the Bentley number 31 entry. ESV Green is going to be one of the Mustang entries, number 38. The Mustangs just have not had the ability to perform. However, with a driver of ESV Green's caliber on this team, maybe we can finally see a Mustang pull off a podium or even an outright fight for win overall today. P1R Habit is going to be in another one of the Mustangs, the number 8 Mustang. NWR Arkina is in the number 45, one of the very few teams that never left the Mercedes after the Mercedes was hammered in BOP for about 2 months straight. Then you'll have JSR Light, who is in the Aston Martin Vantage. We're hoping that his paint scheme properly loads when we go onto the circuit. NDL Avocado is in the number 28 Team Noodle Aston Martin Vantage. And then you have NDL Dindu, who continues to be the series' only Ferrari entry. keep an eye on that Ferrari entry because generally speaking, the Ferraris are very, very twitchy and do not have the aggressive handling. Other things to consider is that with this being what we're anticipating to be a 21 to 22 car field, points only officially go down to about 20th on the grid. So you do not want to be last in today's event. No yellow flags, no nothing like that. They're going to try and manually order the grid here, and then after the grid is properly manually ordered, they will roll off, and once they get to a specified place, I believe it is the bridge that is on the long straightaway between turns 1 and 2, but once they get to a certain spot, they'll go there and we'll be underway. It will be single file for the start of today's event. We're going to try and knock out an ad break a little early here to get ahead of that. We'll be back shortly here at Bathurst with a little bit more, hopefully, the start of the race proper. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here to Bathurst. We still have not yet gotten underway. I'm not really sure what the holdup is, but we are looking at a 21 car field in today's event. Interesting thing is going to be the Chevys. The Chevys haven't been completely useless, but they have not had great reliable results over the majority of the season. They're very good in fighting driver on driver. They are one of the best entries when it comes to car-on-car battling. However, they just generally tear through their fuel and tires at such a quick rate that we see them typically drop off in performance as the tires and fuel fall off. And speaking of tire and fuel, remember that the tire wear is set to 2.5x, so we are anticipating to see about 6 pit stops minimum and about 8 maximum over the course of this race. That has been the story for the majority of the season. Silverstone was a bit of an outlier. Silverstone was incredibly tire wear focused, but generally speaking, we're anticipating between 6 and 8 stops. There may be a driver or two who will be in the back of the grid that may try and make it to the end of only 3 or 4 stops, doing all hards all the way through. But typically in this series, the winning strategy is to go 1 stint on the softs and then every other stint on the mediums, or all your stints on the mediums, or split them pretty evenly, a bunch of stints on softs and a bunch of stints on mediums. We have occasionally seen multiple medium stints and then throw on soft tires at the very end, or vice versa, throw on softs at the very start to get away from other people and then run the rest of the race on mediums. Either way, that is what we're anticipating. And here we are. Now they will finally start getting the field properly lined up. This is going to be our largest field in P1R for several months' time. We'll also go ahead real quickly. And when it comes to the championship fight overall, because remember, this is part of it was 11, now 10 race season. In the championship overall, the current points total has swung very decisively in favor of the NDL Black Pearl, the number 28 entry, driven by Cavatro, NDL Togue, and NDL Avocado. And with Avocado running today and going to be starting up near the front, it is unlikely we'll see anyone close on them Second is the NDL Rasa Corsa entry that has NDL Hot Dog, NDL Dindu, and NDL Micro. Now, Dindu will be starting right behind Avocado in his Ferrari, but again, he would need to end up well ahead of Avocado and need that Avocado entry to have some real bad misfortune fall on them in order to close in. And then third in the championship is the NDL Lobster entry. They have NDL Beats, NDL Wawa, and NDL CJ, who have also occasionally called NDL Circle Jerk. I do not believe any of... no, it is NDL Beats who is going to be running today, and Beats is going to be starting just a little bit behind Dindu and Avocado today. One other thing to keep in mind, if you have not already noticed, keep an eye on the VER entries, because this is the first time that VER is running in the series. They are bringing 2 different cars and also lending drivers out to a few other cars as well. That is part of where the increase in attendance has shown up for when it comes to today's event here at Bathurst. Did they just reset the entire order? They did. It looks like they did just reset the entire order. Alright, we're going to be here even longer then. Please stand by. All right, and we'll see them pull to the side and start lining up in single file momentarily here. Huh. Well, something must be wrong with the game, because normally we don't have the time ticker in this event. So something's probably wrong, and I would anticipate that they're going to end up resetting the field at some point here. Real quickly, let's just look at the points of interest cam. So you have turn 2, you have downhill, and then you have the end of the chase. Okay, that's not too bad. So ESV Green will be your pole setter for today's event. And it looks like they're going to go Ricamain anyway. So it looks like for today, we will actually have time to keep an eye on. So assuming they don't back out midway through, we will have a little bit more data than what we normally do in one of these events. And we believe is once they go under that Prorata tire bridge that they should be underway. Will be ESV Green trying to keep VE Arbitrate and F1R Moonrise behind. Then your 3 championship contending NDL teams, 4th, 5th, and 6th. And we are underway. ESV Green in the Mustang. The Mustang is not believed to be very good in the mountain section, but they had a nice clear run down to turn 2, and Betray just does not seem to be close enough to be able to make a fight. It is a classic Ford versus Chevrolet fight at the head of the field, followed by a Dodge, and then a host of other manufacturers. For now, though, Green holds station over Betrayed, followed by Moonrise. And already there has been an incident at the back of the field. P1R Habit has gone all the way around in his own Mustang now. No damage, but has lost a significant amount of time in the process. As we watch our leaders duck and dive as they head downhill here. Everyone somehow is keeping it out of the wall for their first time through. Moonrise continues to run in 3rd, hanging out in the draft of VE Arbitrade for now. NDL Avocado and NDL Dindu are having a fight farther back on the grid. Our top 3 have blitzed away from the rest of the field. These 3 are just fighting for wins. 4th, 5th, and 6th are all fighting for the overall series championship right now. Out of the final corner. And that is 1 lap officially in the books here at Bathurst. And they start heading back uphill once more. It seems like there's just enough power inside of Green's Mustang that he's able to stay ahead. But I think more importantly, we can already see that VE Arbitrade is just not very confident in the ability of his car to take the corners. He is not gaining any significant time on the Mustang. The big thing to remember here is that you have a lot of focus at this circuit when it comes to top-end power. If you have a significant power advantage, you could honestly afford to lose time in the mountain section if you can just keep everyone behind you. So our top 3 run nose to tail, and we just watch, waiting to see if there's going to be a move, and that was a move there as Moonrise gets right under VE Arbitrade's rear diffuser, gets the Chevy all sorts of sideways, and now the Dodge that Betrayed moves up into 2nd. Moonrise falls back to 3rd. Leading is still ESV Green, though. Moonrise trying to close the gap down just a little bit here. I think Moonrise might be a lot faster in the mountain section, but you can't traditionally pass in the mountain section. Keyword there is traditionally. As we just saw mere seconds ago, it is possible to maybe upset the car ahead and kind of force it, bully it off the ideal racing line and get by using that. Down the chase. Moonrise in the Dodge. The Dodge does not have nearly as much of the top end as the Mustang or the Corvette that is running with. However, the Dodge does have really good braking, and that typically lets it go way deeper into the corners. It gets right under ESV Green's rear wing, nose to tail as they go down the pit straight. And now here comes Moonrise looking to the inside. Not going to make the move in turn 1. Not this time. And now they get onto another straightaway. This is where ESV Green is going to want to try and open up the gap just a little bit here. Moonrise continuing to keep pressure on Green, though. Indiel Avocado has already fallen about 2.5 seconds out of this lead group. They have a slide from the rear of that Mustang. Betrayed still runs right behind. Oh, he slaps the outside wall, and he takes Betrayed with him, and he's gonna get hit by one of the NDL drivers. That was NDL Dindu who hits him. And they're still stacked up. And that's gonna have massive effects not only on the race, but on the championship as a whole. Moonrise has gotten back underway. No damage to the car, but has lost a significant chunk of time in the process. Same with VER Betrayed, who also ended up getting into the Dodge right there in turns 3 and 4. And that will almost by default give ESV Green the stint win, unless Green has to do some Herculean tire saving or something. That should give ESV Green the stint win by default. The question now is just going to be, how is this going to impact the rest of the drivers here? Yeah, we don't have any penalties for today's event, so keep that in mind, I guess. Also, no one has elected to pit yet. So our tickers are a little bit inaccurate. Normally we would have a proper ticker where we wouldn't have the time gaps, but we would have the distance penalties. And thus far, we don't seem to have either. We're not sure if it was a issue with setting up the lobby or if there's been a change in Forza that has caused this to be the way it is. But either way, for the moment at least, we have a ticker, but it is very much inaccurate. It says F1R Moonrise runs in 3rd. Oh, are we backing out now? Oh, so are we only backing out now, 8 minutes into the event? Because we realized there was the ticker problem? Well, they waited an awfully long time. And no, if I tried to leave, spectate, and then join back in, that would only make the ticker problems worse. Okay, so we're going to have to try and do this again here. We're going to knock out a Twitch-mandated ad break, but all of our racing stuff has basically been reset to 0 here at Bathurst. We'll be back shortly. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we want to welcome you back here to Bathurst. We are now about half an hour behind the 8 ball, and I do apologize for that, as it does seem like we have had what I believe is technical issues. We had sniffings of technical issues from the word go, but it seems like no one really noticed it until we were about 3 laps into the event. It was a very interesting 3 laps. We actually saw a move for position. It was a little bit physical, but we saw an actual move for position at the top of the grid. We still do not know what exactly happened to cause or to require the entire event to be redone. There has not been an update from anything I've seen. We do know that for whatever reason, I, in spectate mode, was able to actually see time gaps throughout the field, which is not something you normally would be able to do in a timed race. Normally in a timed race, you do not have that. So I figured right off the bat there was something wrong set up with the lobby, but initially they went with it, so I was just like, okay, I guess we're going to have this now. But whatever it was that warranted the restart, we are not sure what it was. Looks like everyone is readied up, so we should be back underway momentarily here. So they're going to get the field reordered once again for the 3rd attempt now at rear. Only 2nd time on track, but yeah. So we do apologize for having this fallen so far behind. All right, so they're getting the last little bit of the ordering resolved here, as we're going to have to try and redo this again. We do apologize, as we have now fallen basically an entire hour behind schedule due to this mistake, and I do have to apologize. Should be loading onto the circuit momentarily here. Nope, we lost somebody, I believe. I think it lagged someone out as we loaded on. We'll see. Alright, yeah, we've lost somebody, it seems. We're down to 20 people now. And that is now accurate. So the ticker is now closer to what we normally see. But we are missing one person now, it would appear. So I would not be surprised if we see them back out again to try and get the person we lost. Yep, that is exactly the case. All right, so attempt number 3. If you want Tora-like messes in enduros, you get Tora-like staff running stuff, I guess. Ironically, this never happened in the first 5 months of running P1R. Now it's starting to happen all the time here. It's ironic. I don't think it's your fault, Turk. All right, Matt Klim is back. We're going to try and knock out one of Twitch's mandatory ad breaks, and hopefully when we come back, we can get actual proper racing that means something underway here. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here to Bathurst as we are 35 minutes past our start time. We are farther behind now than I think the worst time I've ever seen Tora fall behind. Which is a shame because for the first 4 months, well, the first 5 months, I would say, of these events, we never had any significant lobby derailments. It has only been last month and this month where we started having these significant lobby derailments. We do apologize for that. Excuse me. All right, looks like we should be getting underway this time. Yeah, here we go. All right, 21 drivers. They'll have to reorder the grid once more here. Don't worry, I will be streaming Stint 2 regardless of what happens here. Typically, there is an hour scheduled between each and every stint. So while we are 30 minutes behind right now, we'll still have basically about 25 minutes between the end of this and then the start of Stint 2. So I will be covering all 3 stints for today's event. And as this is a single lobby series, we shouldn't have to worry about any really bizarro stuff happening. So I will be here for Stint 1, Stint 2, and Stint 3. Just for my convenience, when Stint 1 is over, I will end the stream and then make a brand new stream for Stint 2. For Roast Race, if you are trying to see if you want me to do broadcasting for 1HOR, hit me up on Discord, and that will be the best way for you to reach out to me. Okay, we once again only have 20 people. It is the same person that dropped out last time that has dropped out this time as well, it would appear. I do have to wonder if with us running as far behind as we are, though, are they just going to say, screw it, we're going with only 20 people anyway, because we have lost the exact same person. So it'll be Green, Betrayed, Moonrise, all gain another shot of it. 3 NDL Championship contending cars lined up behind. And we're off once again here at Bathurst. This time, immediately Betrayed, going on the offense, trying to go to the outside. There's no room around the mountain to do something like that. Not in turns 3 and 4. Green will hold station, but Betrayed is a lot more aggressive early on. This attempt, nose to tail. And now we start seeing the Mustang eking out just a little bit of a gap over the Corvette of VER Betrayed here. Great news for the Mustang clan. This is their 3rd entry, but we have not seen a Mustang have a good result at any point in the season prior to now. But they've started on the pole, and now they are leading with ESV Green behind the wheel. Betrayed holding steady right behind. And now he's got to run. He's going to look to the inside. Green moves over and blocks it. Here comes the Vet again. Corvette trying to go the long way around. The Mustang holds the inside, which will turn to the outside once they get to the braking zone. It's a dead heat drag race down the hill. Can Betrayed finish the overtake? They'll be neck and neck, heavy under the brakes. Squeezing each other out of room. There's not really any room, and here comes the Dodge Viper of Moonrise. Moonrise is right there. Does he try to make it 3 wide? They're still side by side as they come to the end of the lap. Just a bit of contact on entry, and it's going to be a drag race again as they go down the start-finish straight. The Mustang gets his nose ahead as they go into the braking, but the Vet has that tighter inside line, runs the Mustang all the way wide. But the thing is that when you run your opponent wide like that, you're giving them all this extra room on track. Here's Avocado right there as well. So our top 4, our top 5, all with a blanket on top of each other, 2 by 2 at the head of the field. I think Green will finally get it here. This circuit is way too slow and technical. You can't stay side by side through there. And yes, Betrayed is now going to lose a position to Moonrise. Oh, and Betrayed's into the wall and spins, and he's not the only one. That's a Dodge. That was around the well. He goes into the middle of the track and is hit again. He moves and he moves onto the track again and continues to cause problems. not seeming to care about the other drivers on track. Betrayed moves back and forth across one of the narrowest, tightest parts of the circuit and catches about a half dozen cars into a mess. And now VER Betrayed goes from being up near the front all the way down the order, entirely self-inflicted that time by the looks of it. But now, the driver in second is NDL Avocado, with NDL Dindu and NDL Beats second, third, and fourth. And Moonrise was one of the other drivers involved in the Dodge Viper. He has now been shunted down to 7th. So we saw this in the first attempt, and that time it took 3 laps. This time, it was only the second lap, and we have that stack up there in turns 3 and 4. It's one of the main reasons I really do not like Bathurst as a driver or as a spectator. It's just the circuit does not provide for any serious racing ability. Zula trying to get by JSR Light, and Moonrise goes for a stupid deep dive and hits Zula from behind and is trying to run Zula wide. So now we have 2 drivers who qualified well but have now been shunted very far down the grid here. And they're going to be causing a little bit of havoc as they try and rush up the field. But like what we saw in the first attempt, now ESV Green is going to have a multi-second advantage over the rest of the field. So the stint is basically automatically in ESV Green's favor. This time, it's not off the back of ESV Green just being better than everyone else. It was the 2 drivers who could actually hold tango with him, completely wrecking themselves. And they did it the first time, and then they had a time to redo and do the entire thing better, and instead, they ended up actually doing it all worse. So it's not necessarily that Green has just destroyed everyone else, it's that the only drivers that could hang with him in terms of lap time have completely imploded twice at the same part of the track within 10 minutes. So now the fight for the rest of the event is likely going to be for second on back. These are your 3 championship contending cars: NDL Avocado, NDL Dindu, and NDL Beats. Avocado is your points leader. He's leading the points by a significant margin. Dindu is second, Beats is third. It does seem like the Aston and Ferrari kind of go back and forth between the 2 of them, which one has the better handling in the mountain section. Now they come onto the chase and start running downhill. Just a small lick of the outside wall there by the Aston. Moonrise has already made his way up into the 6th position, ahead of JSR Light. Zula is now the highest running of the Corvettes. And here comes Dindu. He looked to the outside, was not willing to commit. So they stay nose to tail for these positions at the moment. So it was about this point where the event was suspended on the first attempt. Real quick, let's look at the fuel and tire wear for everyone. ESV Green currently has 26% on the rear tires with 36% in the fuel tank. Avocado is at 26%, but it's on the front tires, and he's got 23% in the fuel tank. For NDL Dindu, who runs in third, he is at 27% with 28% in the fuel tank. NDL Beats, 20% in the fuel tank, 27% on the rear tires. And then NWR Zula, who is here in 5th, highest of the Corvettes. He is already 28% in the tire wear, 24% in the tank. And the last driver we'll look at, F1R Moonrise, 28%, nearly 29% in the rear tires, 25% in the fuel tank. So everyone at the front of the field at least seems to be running a similar tire strategy early on. Everyone seems to be burning through their tires. I really want to see who the first driver is that's on a harder tire compound. Might take us a long time of looking back through the grid. Has everyone elected to start on the same set of tires? We look at VER Spark. He is actually burning through his tires faster than everyone else, it would appear. This is Chrysalid. This is it. Chrysalid here in 11th is the first driver who is running on a harder tire compound at this stage of the event. So Chrysalid will likely inherit the event lead once our leaders make their first stop to get off their soft tires. Meanwhile, we continue to watch the fight for second. We know that the overall event is basically done for when it comes to the win. The fight is going to be for second here, and Dindu easily clears Avocado down the hill. So Dindu gets by Avocado, but again, in the championship fight, Dindu not only needs to be ahead of Avocado, he needs to be many, many, many spots ahead of Avocado. Avocado has opened up a gigantic gap in the championship. He needs that Aston Martin to have a disconnect or some sort of accident to really shut him down the grid. You coming home second with Avocado coming home third, that's just not going to be enough to close the championship fight down. Remember, after this event here, there's still one more event in September, one more event in October, and then the finale in November. If you're only closing by one spot on track, and for today and the next 3 events, that will not be enough to close the championship gap down. For Avocado, stress is a lot less significant. He just needs to hang out around Dindu on circuit. But again, the other thing is that these are endurance races. They are multi-stint affairs. You are not going to have the same driver in all 3 stints. And one of the biggest things that have really kind of compromised the Team Newell's Ferrari entry is that Indio Dindu meshes very well with this Ferrari. His teammates are significantly less confident and solid with the Ferrari performances. And that's typically how it goes. Dindu usually earns the team their biggest distance overall, and then it just comes down to how much time are the other drivers going to bleed off and can Dindu outrun them. Avocado's team has been significantly more consistent across all 2 or 3 of their drivers in the events, and that has been one of the main reasons they have had more results higher up the grid throughout the season here. F1R Moonrise has now moved his way into the 5th position here. JSR Light is in 6th, and NWR Zula has slipped down to 7th. So the Corvettes, while they had a few good single-lap pace showings, it is now NWR Zula who seems to be the only one. Zula may be the only one who can get the Corvette entries a good result. The interesting thing is that throughout the majority of the season, the Vet's strength has been in fighting cars. They usually don't qualify well, but they fight very well, and they punch very aggressively in combat. Today, however, they actually had a really good qualifier, qualified up in the top 3 positions, and were fighting for the lead, but it was in the driver versus driver battles where it was pushed too far on 2 separate occasions. So a bit of a strange inversion of fortunes for the Corvette. We're watching NDL Daniel as he has another Corvette that is VER Betrayed running behind him. Meanwhile, the NDL duo for 2nd and 3rd continue to run just about nose to tail. And then you have NDL Beats. And NDL Beats is in a similar position to what NDL Dindu is right now in the championship. He's a little bit worse off. He really needs Avocado's team to start having outright disconnects, something to completely derail their races. Otherwise, NDL Beats is out of it. However, if you're not thinking about, oh, has something happened to Leisure? I don't think anything's happened to Leisure. It looks fine there. But as I was saying regarding NDL Beats, if NDL Beats kind of, just bites his tongue and realizes, look, we don't have anything for Avocado, and I don't think it would be a good idea to do that because there are still several races left, but if it comes to the point where NDL Beats realizes, I don't have anything for Avocado, there is a possibility that we could have a very tight fight for the 2nd place in the championship between the Ferrari entry that Dindu is in, and then this entry, the Acura entry, from NDL Beats' team. So we will keep an eye on that, but as it stands right now, these 2 drivers are really just trying to do something against Avocado. And right now, at this stage of the event, it does seem like Dindu is a little bit more comfortable with the car than Avocado is on circuit right now. All right, down now into turn 1 once again. ESV Green automatically going to win this stint, barring some sort of disconnect or an accident. One interesting thing to consider, though, the entirety of the field has really not spread out. If you look on the map, everyone from 1st to 20th are all basically within the same 3rd of the racetrack right now. So there has not been a significant amount of spread out in the field, And mind you, that's with our top 4 really kind of running away from everyone else. We're not seeing a big amount of spread in the rest of the field. So, in today's event at least, everyone is staying nice and tight together. What is that going to mean going forward? Well, one thing that could provide is that later in the event, when our leaders finally start catching lap traffic, it's not going to be, oh, I catch one single lapped car, and then everything kind of goes back to being clean. If you catch the rest of the field in one gigantic chunk, that will have a massive knock-on effect on your performance, especially here at Bathurst, where there's not really a lot of legitimate overtaking zones on this circuit. Now, if you want to get aggressive, as we saw in the aborted attempt, you can put the bumper to the other cars in some parts of the mountain section and maybe get lucky and sneak away. But for the most part, there's really only about 4 overtaking zones here. And they're coming up to the first of the 4 right now. That is down here, the bend downhill, and then you'll have the 90-degree corner left-hander. That is the final corner. It's a little bit tighter, but that is another overtaking zone. Turn 1 is an overtaking zone, and so is turn 2. And NDL Didn't Do opened up a gap on this duel, but he is electing to pit 15 minutes into the event. And he is not the only one. ESV Green, our leader, has elected to pit as well. And that could be the other thing to keep in mind. If you elect to pit early, you will likely end up in the middle of the pack of cars here. If you are stuck behind slower traffic for a lap or two, that could have some deleterious effects on your performance. So ESV Green comes out onto the circuit here. He'll be 6. NDL Didn't Do will be 7. But the big thing for Green, there is no traffic behind him. He is closing in on NDL Daniel, though. Also, one other thing, we said earlier, oh, Chrysalid could be in a good position. Chrysalid was the first driver of the medium tires. Well, it is not that good at all. Green and Didn't Do have outran Chrysalid, so Chrysalid is not in a position to actually fight for overall race events. And honestly, considering now they are right behind Didn't Do, I think Chrysalid would be fortunate to be even able to fight for a podium position as it stands right now. We look at our top 2 right now. These 2 have yet to make their first stop of the day. 63% wear and only 3.8% left in the tank for Beats. For Avocado, 66% wear on that right front. So Avocado really putting a lot of strain on the front tires here as I run downhill. Again, there is a possibility, not a guarantee, but there is a possibility of rain in the middle portion of this stint. ESV Green has gotten by NDL Daniel already. Did he do that? Okay, he did that coming onto the chase. Oh, and that's a slide by Avocado, but Beats is not able to do anything. Are we going to see this duo pit? Yes, that is exactly what we're going to see. So, Avocado and Beats both jump into the pits now. Moonrise will pit. What about JSR Light? Does he pit? Yes, JSR Light goes ahead and jumps into the pit. So we know that ESV Green is going to take the lead. Daniel comes into the pit. So what of Didn't Do? Where is NDL Didn't Do going to end up in relation to NDL Avocado and NDL Beats? He has pitted 1 lap earlier than the NDL rivals. Well, that seems pretty significant. Didn't Do, he is here. Chrysalid is actually still ahead of both Avocado and Beats. And Avocado has actually opened the gap between themselves and Beats after the pit stop as well. So, Didn't Do, by virtue of pinning a lap earlier and gaining clean air, has absolutely destroyed the rest of the field here. And now, at this stage of the event, there are only 2 drivers who have yet to pit. That is Chrysalid and ZR Derluki, who is in one of the McLaren entries. These both are drivers who started the event on the medium tires. So the soft tires seem to be able to go about 15 to 18 laps, but it does seem like 15 to 18 minutes. But it does seem like if you want to push the tires to that 18-minute mark, you are going to bleed off a significant amount of time. Pitting early seems to be the way to go here. Thing with Chrysalid is that Chrysalid's tires are still going to be firing for a while. Avocado is going to catch Chrysalid, but is going to have to figure out a way by. And if Avocado can't cleanly overtake Chrysalid in a straight line in one of the normal braking zones here, it will drag NDL Beats right back into Avocado's draft. And we could start seeing those two fighting again. So right now, NDL Dindu is doing just about all that he needs to for his team's championship hopes. The big thing, though, is that he needs some bad fortune to befall Avocado here. Avocado goes really deep under braking. He's got those fresh, softer tires compared to those worn-out medium tires of Chrysalid. Chrysalid's going to have a wider line coming into the final corner. Misses the apex completely. And that should be a really simple cut and dry overtake. So that is resolved. Avocado is nice and clean through. And now the pressure goes on to NDL Beats because they are just about out of big, clean track here. They're about to get back into the mountain section where overtakes are just about impossible. And Beats still has not caught Chrysalid, but Avocado is now in comparably clean air. He can open up the gap on Beats. So it looks like we're going to see Avocado start running away from Beats here just because Beats is going to get trapped behind Chrysalid here in the mountain section. We're right on board with Beats. For those of you who showed up looking for what's happened with the VER team, well, one of the VER entries qualified right at the pointy end of the field and was fighting with ESV Green and F1R Moonrise. However, there was an accident lap 2 in turns 3 and 4, and in the process, that VER entry, the VER Betrayed entry, was shunted down out of the top 10. They have recovered a bit up into the 8th position, but that coupled with the other VER entry just not even cracking the top 10 today. VER is not having a great run of it here in their first outing for P1R's SEC Enduro. And you can see NDL Beats struggling to catch Chrysalid. What? Didn't do by Green? What's happened here? What's happened here? ESV Green, who had opened up a gigantic gap on the rest of the field, has now fallen behind NDL Dindu. What's going on here? Green goes deep into the final corner, slides the rear of the car out. It's going to give Dindu the inside line, side by side for a lead. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we have a fight for the overall stint win. Again, Mustang, you don't want to put the Mustang or the Corvette, by that matter, on the outside coming onto one of the longer straightaways. If they're on the outside, they have more racetrack to get the tires to properly grip up, and you're just going to give them an advantage going down the straightaway. If anything, you're going to want to pinch those cars on the extreme inside coming onto the big straightaway, so that way you can deny them their great power out. Green holding station ahead of NDL Dindu for the moment. But that car does seem to be sliding quite a bit right now. Dindu continues to run right behind. But now we're already seeing the gap opening up back in ESV Green's favor. But Green maybe not as destructive and impossible to fight with as we thought earlier, as some sort of controversy has happened which has shunted him back into the grasp of NDL Dindu. And Dindu is still there within drafting range now. Dindu looking to the outside, now looks to the inside, pulls up alongside. It's a drag race down the hill. And Green is, how aggressively is he going to push the issue? Does he go deep under braking? No, he's actually going to back out, let the Ferrari go front. He'll run behind the Ferrari for a bit. Dindu holds a moderate defensive line to the final corner. But it seems like Green is struggling a bit here. And Chrysalid's pitting out of the 5th position now. So he was able to go about 24 minutes. 30% on the tires for Dindu. For Green, who's now coming back on the run uphill, 34%. So there's not a significant difference between these two. Whatever happened to Green, it's not looking like it was due to a tire offset. These two are still running the same tires. Being on the outside going into turn 2 is just not going to work. That circuit is too technical. He did a good job pulling alongside, but could not make it stick. So now, for the first time, ESV Green is actually the one behind the car in the entirety of the mountain section. So what does this mean? How is that going to impact the handling? Well, for Dindu, because of the way that Forza's draft works, he's going to lose a bit of front and downforce. For Green, he is going to not necessarily lose front and downforce, but he'll get draft from the car ahead. That will pull him into the corners at a higher speed, will force him to burn up the tires a little bit more, and he'll have to be on the brakes a little more aggressively so he doesn't overshoot the corners. It doesn't sound like a lot, but we have seen in these events that kind of instance where a driver who was leading in a fight now goes to second will suddenly find the handling of their car completely goes pear-shaped. But NDL Dindu in the Ferrari leads over ESV Green. Reminder, Dindu's team is second in the overall series championship, trying to figure out a way to close back in on NDL Avocado's team. And NDL Avocado currently runs third on track pretty much all by himself right now. So while a win here with Avocado was third would help, the thing is that this stint is not even a quarter of the way over, and there are still 2 more 2-hour stints after this, and we will be covering both of those later today. So while Dindu is setting himself up now in a good position, we do not know how the end results of this event are going to go. Oh, Dindu drops tires in the dirt. That's going to give Green a run. Here comes Green coming uphill. We're going to see them side by side as they head under the Pro Rata Bridge and down to turn 2. And Green looks like he's got his car most of the way ahead. Can he clear Dindu before the braking zone? Yes, he does! And that was incredibly, incredibly costly by Dindu. And now Green goes back in front between this duo. So for the moment, oh, and Green slaps the outside wall there. Dindu's wide. Green goes into the dirt now, but it's at the top of the hill where you can't get alongside. And then they dive downhill. You can audibly hear tires squealing. We're going to go ahead and ride on board for a flying lap with NDL Dindu as he tries to figure out a way to get back by ESV Green here around Mount Panorama here at Bathurst. He's got a great draft. Is this going to be the one? No, he actually brakes nice and early. Both drivers cut the chicane there. We'll go silent for a lap and watch these two fight on merit. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we want to welcome you back here to Bathurst. Our leaders, Green and Dindu, have made their second stop. They are on track to make 7 stops over the course of the event. And have we had a lag out just now? Oh, it looks like P1R Habit seems to have dropped out. We'll try to reach out to Habit and see if he has anything he wants to say here. But right now, NDL Avocado inherits the lead. Reminder, NDL Avocado went a lap longer on the first round of pit stops compared to Green or Dindu. Same with NDL Beats, but Beats is nowhere close to Avocado right now. So I'll be interested to see if staying out for an extra lap will help Avocado in any significant way here. NWR Zula, Firedell, NWR Arkina, and Rough Driving, along with VER Betrayed, have all gone ahead and made their second stop on this circuit as well. Avocado drops tires in the dirt there, as we are now deep into the nighttime hours here at Bathurst. So we are looking at this race maybe coming down to a 7-stop affair if you just want to run soft tires all the way through. The medium tires do seem to be able to last you about 25 minutes or so, maybe a bit longer. But the way those numbers work out, I don't think that you could cut out a pit stop by running a set of medium tires. I think that if you've got speed, you might as well just commit to running soft tires all the way through here. The interesting thing, though, is that for the likes of this driver here, Beat, and then Avocado, who is leading, they went a lap longer earlier in the event, so they should be carrying a bit of a positive tire delta for the remainder of the event, and that could work out in their favor late. Thing is that the likes of Dindu and Green have opened up a gigantic gap on them. This is F1R Moonrise, who is in the Dodge Viper, going a little bit deeper on the fuel and tire run, trying to claw their way back into a top 3 result. Remember, Moonrise, along with the VER Betrayed entry, were the 2 cars that were actually able to fight with Green on pace early on before they got into an accident right behind him. So Moonrise trying to do something to get off sequence. And there we want to talk about the Dodge Viper's big strategy. And that's not just in GT3, but it's across all the Dodge Viper entries within the game. The Dodge Vipers are very torquey, but they don't have a whole lot of top end usually compared to the other cars in their category. What does that mean? Well, that means you are carrying less speed going into the corners. And in the process, that also means that you're going to see them dealing with a lot less tire wear because they don't have to be as aggressive. And it looks like the track has wetted up a bit. Track seems to have gotten a lot greasier and slicker now. I don't see any signs of rain on the onboard here, but you can visibly tell the track has gotten significantly more greasy and more slick at this stage of the event. I do see little rain droplets on the hood of the car. Now, if there was going to be weather changing, we were to see rain now, this would be about the time of race that we would expect to see it happen. So, interesting thing here, Dindu has actually fallen behind Avocado and Beats after pit stops are over. So, championship momentum has gone back in Avocado's favor, and Avocado is now the one who's starting to slowly close in on ESV Green. F1R Moonrise still has yet to make their stop. It should be coming this lap, though. There it is. Same with Chrysalid, Hilfiger, ZR Durluki, and P1R Coastal. Also, NWR Zula has already made a 3rd stop at this stage of the event. And there goes ESV Green back into the pits. Huh? ESV Green back into the pits, and Dindu is as well. Is the track wet? Is the track too wet for slicks? Did the drivers who pitted a lap earlier, have they been derailed because the track has gotten so much wetter? if that is the case, that's going to completely upend everything, and this puts championship momentum very solidly in Avocado's favor, because now ESV Green and Dindu will now be so far behind everyone else. Also, this would help Moonrise out, because Moonrise went so much farther, he is able to only make one stop, and he'll now move back into third position. But now ESV Green has made a third stop, so has Dindu. It looks like the same is the case for VER Betrayed. And now Green is going to be shunted down to fifth position. He basically has to outdrive an entire extra pit stop here. That seems to be what's happened. While I don't visibly see rain on track, there must be enough that the track has gotten wet enough that drivers are now being required to run wet weather tires, as the slicks just do not have the grip anymore. Interesting thing though, and the thing that kind of upends that entire thing, this is ZR Chrysalid here running in fourth. Minder, Chrysalid ran the first stint on mediums. We believe they're on softs right now, but Chrysalid is still out on track on the same set of tires. He has not made any attempt to change his tire compound yet. So Chrysalid trying to cut out pit stops, and suddenly, after being 2 stops ahead of Green now, he is fourth, and Green has gone down to fifth. And the other thing is that if Green catches Chrysalid in a problematic part of the track, he could be held up by this Audi entry here. Do you go ahead and just tough it out and run these slow laps on fresher, slick tires compared to the grooved rain rubber? Try to cut out a pit stop like that. That seems to be what Chrysalid is trying to do. Be careful under braking. You don't want to slide off circuit here. Oh, you can see that rear end of his Audi is just not handling whatsoever. And Green on proper wet weather tires is going to be able to go around the outside. Will clear him going into the braking zone, I imagine. Yeah, he's able to brake so much later than the Audi. I mean, Chrysalid's day was just not working out at all, but this strategy does not look like it's going to help him out at all either. But now, NDL Avocado has gone into the lead, having waited a lap to make a stop earlier, gave them a little bit more reactability when it came to seeing the change in weather, and they put on the wets before everyone else. Firedale now comes into the pits. ZR Derluki and Chrysalid still running on dry tires on a wet track now. Somehow they're not having any accidents, but they are hemorrhaging time right now. Firedale finally gives up trying to run on this circuit on dry tires. So he's going to jump in and put wets on. VER Betrayed has now fallen to 9th in the field, so his plan to cut up through the grid on pace has kind of been derailed now. And then for VER Spark and the other named VER entry and the other Corvette, their day just goes from bad to worse. They've now slipped to 15th on the track here. A real interesting one is Moonrise, because Moonrise waited so much longer. So not only does Moonrise have gotten his track position back, he's only at 12% wear on the tires. You look at Avocado and Beats, who made change a lap earlier, they are already in the 20s. So Moonrise basically has an entire extra lap on the wet. So depending on how long the track stays wet like this, Moonrise might have a bit of an advantage over Avocado and Beats. So after being involved in an accident earlier, Moonrise, with a little bit of fortune and a lot of preparation, is closing in. And now Chrysalid finally aborts running on the dry tires on a wet track. So we're going to see them hemorrhage a significant amount of positions, might even fall out of the top 10 in the process. So this will put NDL Dindu back up into the 5th position for now, and ESV Green still runs 4th as he is trying to barrel down on our top 3 drivers right now. But Green finally has, well, I shouldn't say finally, he's had other issues. He's lost a lot of time under several circumstances today. but Green does seem to have enough of a pace advantage. He might be able to outdrive this extra pit stop that he's basically been forced to make. He should have the speed to run down Avocado and Beats. The wild card is going to be Moonrise, because early on, Moonrise was right there with Green before being involved in that accident. So if Moonrise is just slightly slower than Green, he could, in theory, keep Green behind him for a ridiculous amount of time. The big thing, though, is that Green, in the Mustang, has significant straight line speed advantage over Moonrise. So, circumstances have become very interesting here, and every driver has, as far as we can tell, every driver has aborted trying to run the dry tires in these very slick, wet conditions. And while we do not see rain on the track, you can see that the circuit has become absolutely soaked. There is no longer a dry line anywhere on the circuit. Field has spread out for a little bit. F1R Moonrise continues to close down on NDL Beats. We're going to go ahead and knock out a Twitch mandated ad break. We'll be back shortly here at Bathurst as the tables continue to turn here. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we want to welcome you back here to Bathurst as we were watching Leechard as he was following the bit of a slap fight going on between NWR Shadow and Hilfiger here. Hilfiger is really struggling right now under these wet conditions, has lost position to NWR Shadow, and now about to be caught by Leechard for the 11th place on track. The interesting thing that we really want to keep an eye on, though, F1R Moonrise and ESV Green. Green is basically trying to outrun an entire extra pit stop. Moonrise has tires that are a lap fresher than Beats and Avocado, and he is cutting away at the gap between himself and NDL Beats. The big problem, though, well, that is a Dodge Viper. NDL Beats, he is in a Acura. Now, the Acura typically has really good acceleration, but the Dodge, not so great. The thing is, though, that the Acura will have a higher top speed. The Moonrise's Dodge will have a lower top speed. What does that mean when it comes to fighting? Well, if Moonrise catches Beats in a straight line, it's going to be one of the hardest overtakes you would have to try and make happen. Beats, hypothetically, could keep Moonrise behind as long as he wants. The other thing is that if Beats and Moonrise spend a significant amount of time fighting, it will let Avocado continue to open their gap on the rest of the field here. Up to the top of the hill. Right now, Beats can't see Moonrise until just right there, just briefly sees him at the top of the mountain. Now I start running back downhill. This little fight, three-way here, between Shadow, Hilfiger, and Leechard continues. No one here in this group seems to be very happy how their cars are handling. This is the most active fight on track right now for position. Ooh, Vet into the outside wall. Hilfiger also slaps the outside wall, but a little less dramatically. They both drop tires into the dirt. Leachard's doing a little bit better job just holding his car on track, but you've got to get alongside somewhere. How are you going to do it? How are you going to make it happen? Puts the bumper twice to that HYR entry that Hilfiger is running. And now onto the straightaway, onto the chase here. Leacher didn't have that great of a run on, and considering that Leacher is in another one of the dodges, he's going to bleed time down the entirety of the chase here. Hilfiger has a run on NWR Shadow, you can see right ahead. Does he pull out? Does he try to make a dive here in the chicane? No, not this time. Shadow jumped under the brakes real early though and kind of backed up the HYR entry. Vet for the moment holds station. All right, now we see Hilfiger. He's going to try and go around the outside. Not necessarily the greatest way to make it work. And Leachard goes deep and very nearly hits both of them there. And there goes Hilfiger. Pulled up alongside Shadow, and on the run uphill, he will clear the Vet. Leachard, in that dodge, just does not have anything that he can do to really fight for position. He can hang out, but you just cannot pull alongside if you don't have any good straight line speed. Doesn't matter how good your lap times are, if you do not have the horsepower to make a move, you're never going to get by somebody here at Bathurst. That is the joy or frustration, however you want to look at it, of this circuit. Oh, they both dropped tires in the dirt there. But again, Leachard is not really in a position. It doesn't matter how clean Leachard is here. Oh, and that's Hilfiger to the outside wall. Makes contact, and Leachard's around. Leachard's around, and Hilfiger is gone with him, and that will let Shadow open up the gap and run away now. This duo will get back on the way, but it looks like that fight's over. Something else to consider. This is 4th place, ESV Green. Moonrise had just about caught NDL Beats on circuit, but slapped the wall going downhill. Bled off a huge chunk of time, and now Moonrise is no longer fighting forward to NDL Beats. He now has to worry about ESV Green behind. And now we see VER Betrayed already making a pit stop here. This is his 4th stop, and we're not even halfway through the event. So things continue to get worse and worse for the VER Betrayed entry. They may be great in qualifying, but their race ability is leaving a lot to be desired today. We are looking at a scenario where we may see neither VER entry get a result in the top third of the field. Coming in with such high hopes, ready to get their elbows out and really start fighting in this series. VER is a group that specializes in these mini enduros. But it does not seem like that specialization is really working out here for them today. Ryan on board with ESV Green. He runs behind F1R Moonrise again. Green in the Mustang is going to be taking advantage of a massive amount of straight line speed ability here. And it looks like we're starting to see a dry line form on the racetrack again. So if this line is properly dry, drivers might elect to jump onto slicks on their next pit stop. There goes NDL Beats coming in the pits. Here comes ESV Green coming into the pits now. So is that what's happening? Are these drivers now going to throw on a set of slick tires? These are wets that they're on right now. Avocado still leads. Moonrise now second. We're going to see NDL didn't do stay out for another lap. Some of these drivers are not ready to make that swap yet. So I have to wonder for VER Betrayed, who had just made his stop. Did Betray do it with the intention of jumping onto slicks before everyone else? Well, Beats already back on track. So is ESV Green. Betrayed's going to get by JSR Light here. The big thing, though, is that by jumping on to slicks early, if the track has dried out enough already that you can just run slick tires to the end here, Betrayed is in a position where he's really only in 8th. He is now at a tire disadvantage to the drivers who have already pitted to put on the slicks. So do keep that in mind. Moonrise is just not having a great time of it. It does seem like as the track is drying out, they are struggling significantly with their rubber. You could probably pit now, throw on a set of medium tires, and then just run softs to the end of this race, I imagine. I imagine we're going to see first, second, and third place all pitting this time by. We're right on board with ESV Green. He sees NDL Beats ahead of him. Beats pitted an entire lap earlier than Avocado. Is that going to help him in his fight against Avocado? Remember, Beats' team is also trying to close in on Avocado's team in the championship. All 3 NDL entries that you see are all fighting for the championship. They are 1, 2, 3. There we are. We see Avocado, Moonrise, and Dindu all in the pits now. So is this duo going to clear them? It looks like it. Avocado is rolling down the pit straight, but has not gotten onto the circuit yet. Beats has cleared Moonrise. Green is going to end up right behind Moonrise. So Moonrise still maintains their positioning over ESV Green. And now Moonrise is the one that will have a very slight tire advantage in life over ESV Green at this stage of the event. And Avocado maintains his lead as well, although it is tenuous. But he has the lead and he has a tire advantage. Okay, Green now on Moonrise. He out-qualified Moonrise. He's been ahead of Moonrise most of the day, but Moonrise is in a car that is fantastic in the slower speed sections. Green is in a car that is great in the higher speed sections. How aggressive is Green going to be to try and get by this Viper? I would just wait until you get onto the straight. You know that the Vipers have no way to fight back downhill. You don't have to make any big crazy moves now. And if anything, it looks like this duo is still closing in on NDL Beats ahead. We could see a menage a trois here for second position. Okay, if Green nails his acceleration coming onto the chase, he should be able to clear Moonrise completely before the braking zone. The Mustang is just so much better when it comes to top end compared to the Dodge. Downhill, this should be it. Has Green nailed it? Here it goes. It's going to be an outside overtake, but he's going to clear him. He's going to clear the Dodge before they get to the braking zone. Does Moonrise go deep under braking? He licks the rear diffuser of Green's car. Licks it right in the gap. But Green's made that position. No issue whatsoever. So Green's already back in the third. Mind you, Green has basically had to make an entire extra stop. And while he has not been perfect, he has just been so much better than the other drivers around him. Everyone ahead of him has gotten by him by being better strategists, but when it comes to outright pace, no one is Green's equal. Moonrise is close, but Moonrise is in a car that has a terminal weakness. The Dodge Viper cannot fight for position. In any driver-on-driver combat, that Dodge Viper will lose. And now green is closing in on NDL Beats. And all the while, NDL Avocado leads, but green and Moonrise are both closing on Avocado. So our top four all continue to all close in on each other. Fifth place has gone to ZR Crislin. Sixth is NDL Dindu. He had pace earlier, but is all dribbled away. Ryan on board with green as he closes in behind. NDL Beats again. Right there behind the rear wing of that number 75. If green gets a good acceleration onto the chase, he might be able to do to Beats what he did to Moonrise the prior lap. Oh, Moonrise slaps the outside wall. And now he hemorrhages time to green. Down the hill once again. He's not close enough to have cleared him by the braking zone. Did he just go deep under braking here? He sure looked like it. But for the moment, NDL Beats will keep ESV Green behind. Oh, Green drops tires into the grass just for the moment there. And that car ahead of them, that is Avocado. So Beats is closing on Avocado while keeping Green behind. Coming uphill again here. Seems like Beats has a good enough acceleration that while green is faster in a straight line, Beats is able to get to a higher, good top end much faster than the Mustang. But there we go. Big slide by Beats. Mustang trying to go around the outside, and he'll clear him. Beats was not confident enough in the car to go deep under braking. So green just muscles by in the last possible overtaking zone on the track. And Avocado is next on the list. So despite having to make an entire extra pit stop, it just doesn't matter. We should have known that ESV Green was going to win this stint by default just because he qualified up front, but he's definitely done his best to make the first half of the stint at least look interesting. But it's time to wake up, it seems, and come back to the real world. The big wildcard, though, ESV Green in the Mustang, a car that has been completely uncompetitive through the majority of the season. This is their third or fourth entry thus far this season. They have not gotten a single podium finish in a stint prior to today. Green looks like they are going to try and drag that Mustang to the top. Would be their first podium result for that Ford Mustang entry. Moonrise starting to close in on NDL Beats just a bit. But our focus is here, watching Avocado lose his lead to ESV Green. We're going to take one of the mandatory Twitch ad breaks. We'll be back shortly here at Bathurst. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Bathurst. And the first half of this stint had been relatively exciting. But now, the weather has cleared up, everyone is in their position on pace, and despite having to make an entire extra pit stop, Green has gone back to the lead. He has cleared NDL Avocado. There is a bit of a fight for third that is worth watching. The thing here is that the Dodge Viper does not have the ability to overtake in a straight line. NDL Beats is in a car that has a fantastic acceleration, and Moonrise is in a car that has one of, if not the worst, top ends in the entire field. So if this overtake is going to happen, it's likely going to have to be from Beats sliding off circuit or Moonrise beating Beats in the difference of in and out laps coming in and out of the pits. Otherwise, I don't think there's any way that this Dodge Viper clears the Acura. Deep under braking is Moonrise, but you can see the gap between these two cars open up significantly in the accelerations. Oh, big slide though! Oh, that could be it! Big hiccup there by NDL Beats. He'll get a decent run out of the final corner, but here comes Moonrise. Moonrise pulls up alongside. Now the Dodge can go really deep under braking. How deep do you want to go under braking here to try and clear the Acura? If anything, the Acura pinches the Dodge down, denies the Dodge the ability to get its power down smoothly, so the Acura holds station. Oh, and that's interesting. I just now noticed, but we are about to see our leader, ESV Green, catch lap traffic here, likely by the end of this lap. Now, I don't imagine it's going to actually change the fact that he is so much faster than everyone else. As long as he doesn't end up in an accident with lap traffic, shouldn't really change anything. Moonrise runs right behind NDL Beats. He's going to have nightmares about Team Noodles, and how long he has been stuck here. Don't want them to get side by side here going down the mountain. That's just a recipe for a track blocking accident. Still right under that rear wing. But you get onto the straightaway, and although you saw Beats have a bit of a hiccup putting the power down, lick the outside wall a bit, the Dodge Viper just does not have any straight line speed. And all of the overtaking points on this circuit are at the end of big straightaways where you're carrying a lot of speed in. Moonrise has the draft. You gotta try and go to the outside. Do you go deep under braking? He is gonna go deep under braking. Is that enough? No! And he slides into the dirt. The Viper just can't make overtakes. It's just not happening. And yes, the race is for second, despite the fact that ESV Green had to make an entire extra pit stop because of the rain. Green has already ran off with this win. Made the first half of the stint interesting, but now the fight is second here. And even then, I'm not even sure how much of a real fight for second it is. Because while Moonrise is faster than both NDL Avocado and NDL Beats, this Dodge Viper does not have the ability to make any overtakes. It is not a driver issue. It is not a balancing issue. This is not calling out the officials. This is just a car issue. The Dodge Viper cannot make an overtake on merit. The car does not have the straight line speed to do so. If the Dodge inherits positions, it is almost exclusively because of mistakes from the drivers ahead, letting the Dodge out-brake somebody into a corner. And while Beats is making quite a few mistakes, the sheer acceleration ability of the Acura, one of the best out of all the GT3s in the game, is keeping him ahead of F1R Moonrise. There's a big way back to NDL Dindu. He is 5th overall, but distance is not looking good. And again, these are endurance races. Overall distance is what matters. And Dindu has nothing compared to what the top 4 do right now in distance. Meaning that for Dindu, who is usually the best driver in his team, this event tonight might be the one that completely derails any chance that that team had at the championship. They're going to lose too many points to Avocado's team tonight. Again, things could change. Avocado or the drivers who will get into that car later could disconnect. Here comes a move. The Dodge coming around the outside. Can he go deep enough under braking to finally do it? It took Beats having a horrible run coming onto the straightaway. But finally, Beats made a driver mistake big enough that the Dodge could get barely alongside and outbrake. So Moonrise finally clears into 3rd. And the next driver ahead is the Aston Martin of NDL Avocado. That is rough driving. No, not rough driving. That is P1R Coastal, a lapped car that Moonrise is going to have to deal with here. Well, Coastal just pulls off to let them by, so that will not be an issue. Moonrise has to try and run down on Avocado. Of our top 3 qualifiers, Green is still 1st. Moonrise has recovered from an accident to 3rd. And then you have to go all the way back to 7th, VER Betrayed. Has just been frustration after frustration for Betrayed. While he has had lap time, while he has had pace, just does not seem to have any fortune, and a big self-inflicted accident in turn 3 and 4, or as you're about to see him enter here, on lap 2, shunted Betrayed out of the top 10. He has dug deep, and despite having to make an entire extra pit stop over most of the rest of the field, he has recovered to 7th, but we have to wonder how much more can he actually pull off. The car ahead of him is ZR Chrysalid. Chrysalid is 2 pit stops ahead of Betrayed, basically, but doesn't really have a lot of pace. There is a possibility you'll see Betrayed get back up to 6th, but Dindu is so far up the road. I don't know if Betrayed has a shot at anything better than a 6th. Then things could happen. We've seen crazy things happen before. But that seems to be the case for now. Green has bled off a little bit of his time, and Green's coming into the pits now. So Green and Moonrise are going to pit, and Beats are all going to pit a lap earlier than Avocado. So Avocado is going to stay out a little longer, and if you're in Avocado's position, but we saw earlier that the medium tires could go about 25 minutes. So for Avocado, he could elect to pit, throw on mediums, and then only make one more stop for the rest of the race. Now, of course, the big problem is that ESV Green has a monstrous pace advantage over the entire rest of the field. But for Avocado, that might be enough to give him 2nd and let him extend his lead over NDL Beats and NDL Dindu's teams. Again, it is all about overall distance. And Beats is close enough still that if Avocado has a mistake or gets held up by traffic, it could derail everything. But again, if Avocado cuts out a pit stop, that might work out well for them. Shadow is making their pit. Leacher making their pit stop. We're seeing NWR Zula go ahead and jump into the pits now. Credit where credit is due, Moonrise, despite being involved in an incident earlier, has gotten back to ESV Green and has been holding roughly in the same zip code as ESV Green for most of the rest of the event. If Green has another mistake, you saw earlier Green opened up a big lead over NDL Dindu and then bled it away and let Dindu get alongside and pass for a bit. If something like that happens again, Moonrise could be in the position to get back ahead of Green. But again, the big problem is that the Mustangs has a ridiculous straight line speed advantage, and Moonrise and the Dodge just will not have any way to keep Green behind once that Mustang gets behind them onto one of these straightaways. All right, Avocado making a stop. Where is Avocado going to end up in relation to this duo? Beats in fourth has completely lost touch with Green and Moonrise. So the top three looks like it's going to be Avocado, Green, and Moonrise. For Avocado, we wonder, is he going to try and make it on 2 more stops, soft, 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 or is he going to try and go medium, medium on his tires? Well, Green's already by. Moonrise is already by. Avocado is going to end up behind both of them by a significant margin. NDL Daniel making a stop. The one NDL entry who's not an active participant in the championship. In, like, fighting for the overall championship. He has been a repeated member in the series, but this entry has not earned enough points to be in serious championship contention as it stands right now. In the BMW M8 entry. One of the very few, if not, I know this is actually the only entry that stuck with the BMW M8 all season long. The BMW Z4 came out early on in this year, and a lot of the drivers who started the season with the BMW M8 took the automatic freebie to swap over to the Z4 immediately. Daniel's team has been the only exception. They've stuck with the BMW M8, and it has given them some solid results. And the loyalty does seem to have paid off. One advantage in having that kind of extreme loyalty to a car like that is that you have a book of knowledge that you just kind of continue building on and building on and building on as the season goes on. It's worked well for Daniel thus far. Betrayed has gotten by Chrysalid. Chrysalid has had a weird and wild day today, to say the least. Daniel 8th, JSR Light 9th, ZR Derluki in 10th. Typically, drivers who try to minimize their time on pit road don't have a very competitive day, but both Derluki and Chrysalid are setting themselves up to maybe go the distance and both get top 10 results by just minimizing the amount of pit stops you have to make today. Also, P1R Coastal is starting to pull away from ESV Green. So I wonder if our top 3 drivers are all going to run medium to the end of this race. Try to cut out a pit stop, minimize the amount of time on pit lane. Only 17% wear here for ESV Green. For Moonrise, only 17% as well. Avocado Binder pit a lap later than that duo. He's at 10%. I think these drivers are all on mediums and are likely looking at just making one more pit stop to the end. I cannot show the delta. So there was a hiccup earlier that was able to show delta. But in these timed races, I am not able to show time delta if the lobbies are set up properly. And I do apologize, but that is the way that this game works. You cannot see time deltas in a timed race. I will go ahead, though, as we are coming into the last 3/8 of this race, I will go ahead and show the distance penalties. Now remember, in this series, you get a point for your team automatically if you can complete a stint with no distance penalties whatsoever. And if you look at this, ESV Green, no distance penalties. NDL Beats, no distance penalties. NDL Dindu, no distance penalties. NDL Daniel, no distance penalties. NWR Shadow, no distance penalties. Fairdale, VER Spark, Rough Driving, and P1R Coastal, all of them have no distance penalties at this stage of the event. Also, we're going to see Rough Driving going a lap down here. Also, the drivers with the biggest distance penalties, nothing more than 1/10 of a mile. So this is the complete opposite of what we had several months ago at Spa, where everyone seemed to be getting distance penalties. Here, because Bathurst it's not truly a street circuit, but it feels like a street circuit because you just have these tight walls everywhere. There's just not a lot of places on circuit to actually cut the track and end up with penalties. So I imagine we will see most of these drivers maintain this very low or non-existent distance penalties as this event goes on here. From the start of the race, this is what it looks like. Green qualified here. Moonrise is up in position from the start. Avocado and Beats are up positions from the start. Dindu is still where they qualified. Betrayed is the big wild card. Qualified second, but self-inflicted accident on lap 2 shunted him down. He's recovered to 6th, but it seems like that seems to be the most that they can do. Crislin and Daniel are up positions. Light has dropped positions. Shadow is up a bunch of positions. The most gained positions overall across the course of the race. But again, there's still lots of time for that to change. Leishman and Hilfiger are still midfield where they started. Zula has lost ground. Derluthi has gained ground. Fairdale's where they started roughly. Spark has lost ground. Coastal has gained a little bit. Rough Driving is where they qualified. Arkina is back and last overall on circuit right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to go silent for a lap and ride on board for a flying lap with ESV Green so you can get an idea on how to take this circuit so smooth compared to the rest of the field here. And that is a full lap on board with ESV Green here at Mount Panorama Bathurst. Green started up front, leads now, has been by far the fastest driver. While he's made mistakes, his mistakes have been much more minimal compared to the other fast drivers today. The big thing to consider, though, is that the first hour, at least, did not look nearly as even keel. Green made some mistakes, built up a big lead, then bled it all off due to mistakes. made a mistake. Rain came. He had to make 2 pit stops in a row so he could actually get onto rain tires. Basically was an entire pit stop behind everyone else. Despite that, though, Green has really come along, walking off with this here. And barring something crazy, it looks like we'll get the first podium result in a stint win to boot for the Mustang entry. Second place goes to F1R Moonrise. Moonrise qualified up near the front, one of the few drivers that have been able to do anything close to Green in terms of time. They were involved in a lap 1 incident, fell well down the order, recovered ground by just staying out longer on tires and being able to be a lot more reactive to the changes in the weather, which let them close up and actually end up briefly be ahead of Green. But between the two of them, Green's car is so much better in the straightaways, and you need to have a massive amount of straight line speed to make overtakes here. Moonrise is in a car that cannot fight car on car, driver on driver for anything, but is using pace and intelligence to salvage a second when it looked like, after that lap 2 accident, their day was over. Then in third place is NDL Avocado. This team is doing everything they need to continue to slowly add to their championship lead over their rivals. Their rivals being other NDL team entries right now. Avocado has led a significant amount of this race. He's not been one of the faster drivers today, but due to just being clever, smart, and being willing to sacrifice a little bit of distance, a little bit of lap time to be a lot more reactive, has put themselves in a fantastic position. They are third right now, setting themselves up to try and open up their gap in the championship fight. Then fourth place overall on track is the driver and team that is third in the championship going into this race. This is NDL Beats. Beats did not look like one of the faster NDL drivers today. Now granted, I say that, they still qualified up in the top 6, but Beats did not look that fantastic early. But when the rain came, Beats was one of the drivers who was honestly very well set up for the rain racing, fought for the lead and has fought with everyone ahead of him for a while. However, as the race is now really dragged on to its final, we're about to enter the final quarter, overall pace is just not there for NDL Beats. They are falling back behind Avocado and are going to continue to lose ground to Avocado's team in the points. However, for NDL Beats, they are still ahead of NDL Dindu, so we could see a tight fight for second in the Drivers' Championship forming shortly here. Then we have NDL Dindu, and Dindu is in the same position as ESV Green, had great gaps opened up on the rest of the field, had opened up a significant run on the rest of the grid, just really scooted away from everybody else, it seemed, except for Green. He had been fighting with Green for position. However, just like Green, they pitted a lap too early. The rain came just after making a pit stop, so they had to make a second stop right away. Unlike Green, though, Dindu has not had the sheer outright pace to outdrive that extra pit stop. Dindu has actually been bleeding off time gradually since. And Dindu, who was second in the championship, this team, the second in the championship coming into the day, with Avocado in third and Dindu now looking like they might slip out of the top 5. It's just not looking good for him here. And then you have 6th place. This is VER Betrayed. I said earlier, I thought Betrayed was only going to be able to get to 6th at best. Well, Betrayed is starting to close back down on NDL Dindu and might make a charge for 5th. The big thing, though, for Betrayed, he was running second, putting heavy pressure on ESV Green. As you see Betrayed coming into the pits now. Okay, yeah, that's just a cut coming into the pits. But VER Betrayed jumping into the pits here. Betrayed and Vault was the main epicenter of that lap 1 accident. Just back and forth all across the track, hitting about half dozen other cars in the process, fell out of the top 10. Has had the pace to drag himself back up into 6th. They're on a slightly alternate pit strategy than everyone else around them. They've actually made more stops than anyone else on track, except for last place Arkina right now. VER Betrayed just trying to dig deep to figure something out. Still, even a top 5 would be underwhelming. They really hope that the next 2 drivers that the team are going to be submitting can get some proper good results going forward. Now I want to talk about 7th place ZR Chrysalid in the Audi. Chrysalid is in a very interesting position because Chrysalid has been trying to minimize their pit stops over the course of the day. Typically, the teams and drivers who try to take the fewest number of stops just don't have the pace to really do anything. But Chrysalid is kind of bucking that trend. Yes, Chrysalid is not going to be in the fight for a top 5 result. Grizzled has not had anything close to the pace to do that. But typically, drivers trying to run this kind of minimizing pit stop strategy are end up down to 13th to 15th place positions. Grizzled is setting themselves up to maybe bring home a top 10 while running a minimum pit stop strategy. Now, there's still time for that to change. Maybe Grizzled's going to abandon that, just start running soft tires to the end, and we're just not aware of that. But as is now, Grizzled is making something of their strategy. It would be a really solid showing for the Audi, which has been a little bit temperamental over most of the season, but Grizzled's really trying to make something of it. Then you have NDL Daniel in the BMW M8. This car had some fantastic runs at Watkins Glen the other month. However, their performance today has been relatively silent. There's not been a lot to talk about for this car or driver in Stint 1 here at Bathurst. They've run in the bottom half of the top 10 pretty much all day today. Not a lot to talk about. They are closing in on some lap traffic they'll have to deal with, but overall, Daniel's having a silent but respectable day today. Then you get to ninth place NWR Shadow. Shadow, Leishard, and Hilfiger have all been in a prolonged fight throughout most of the day today. All three of them making mistakes, all three of them losing time to each other and the track overall. However, they all have enough pace that they have been able to maintain this fight for 8th, 9th, and 10th position as this race has gone on. We're going to try and keep an eye on how these three turn out near the very end of the event. If not for the interesting strategy and back and forth that was going on up at the head of the grid, this would have been the main fight to be focusing on most of the day. They have been going back and forth multiple times throughout the entire day today. Then behind Shadow and Leacher and Hilfiger, there's a little bit of contact there. But behind this trio, as they all are going to jump into the pits at the same time, is JSR Light. Light's just not been having a great time of it today. It's not been the worst time ever, but this Aston Martin entry is not performing anything close to what NDL Avocado's entry is. Light has been trying to go a little bit deeper, a little bit longer on their tire runs to try and let them short fill or maybe cut out a pit stop later, but I don't think Light's got the pace to pull off anything close to a top 10 result. Then a little bit farther back than that would be NWR Zula. Zula, another one of the Chevy entries. Remember, 5 Chevrolets entered in today's event. Right now, only one of them are fighting for a top 5 result. Chevys may have come out in force today, but their results just have not been there, and Zula's day has been the pinnacle of that. No accidents, no incidents, and Zula's been very good, fighting with other cars on track, but the pace has just not been there with the Corvettes. Then you go to 14th, this is Firedale. Firedale's in another one of the Audis, another one of these drivers we've just not really talked a lot about. Firedale has had to make a significant number of stops today, and if Firedale is going to have to say that there's one thing that's really derailed their event, it's going to be this. Firedale has made 2 more stops than the other Audi running, ZR Chrysalid, and you can see Chrysalid right in the top 7, Firedale well down in 14th. Then you get to 15th place, ZR Derluki, who is in the McLaren entry. Derluki is on a strategy that is very similar to ZR Chrysalid's strategy. The big difference, though, is that Derluki seems to have not been able to make it work. Derluki has committed to more stops. They have also been bleeding off more time. It just seems like you have 2 different variants. You can minimize pit stops or you can go for sheer pace. Derluki tried to find a balancing act between the two. It just doesn't look like that's worked, and someone went off there. I believe that was one of the lap drivers. No, that was Hilfiger. Hilfiger has gone off there at the top of the mountain. He's going to bleed off a significant amount of time in the process. All right, then we get to VER Spark. Probably one of the more frustrating stories. I have gotten the chance to talk with VER Spark several times over the last few days in the build-up to this weekend's event. There's a lot of uncertainty in the VER camp as to what cars are the best one to go for, but in the end, the team decided to go with the Chevrolets. The Chevrolets have had good single-lap pace, but they have not had good pace over the course of a full run, and VER Spark has really had trouble keeping the car under him clean for an entire run under a set of tires here. It's not the worst thing ever, but Spark has just not been having a very good time today, and looks like they may be finishing near the back quarter of the grid as this goes on. The only good thing I will probably say is that the likelihood of him going a lap down, well, he is 16th right now. He would be the next driver to go a lap down. However, I think he should have just enough to stay ahead of Green. So at least he shouldn't go a lap down this first out here. Then you get Rough Driving. Rough Driving has been at the back of the event all day today, just not had anything close to a good performance. Would love to turn things around. However, I do want to go ahead and say, if you look at the penalty, rough driving is looking to bring home a stint with no distance penalties. That would be huge for the team. It would give them at least 1 point to try and salvage what has been otherwise a very, very rough time for them. Then you have P1R Coastal. Coastal, another one of the Corvettes. He has kind of a similar story to what we've been seeing with VER Spark or JSR Light. Yes, the same story, but with more brown notes. Just not been any good performances by this entry. It's a very nice paint scheme, but I'm sorry to say, the only time we've really seen them today is when the leaders have gone by them. And then you have NWR Arkina. It has been nothing short of a nightmare drive today for Arkina. This is the only Mercedes car in the event, and for those of you who have followed this championship since the season started, if you go back to the earlier races, you go back to the likes of Silverstone or Sebring or the Spa races, the Mercedes were by and far dominant. The BOP was massively stunted in their favor. Well, over the course of about 2 months, the BOP was massively changed. The Mercedes lost most of their massive advantage. This entry, the NWR entry, decided to stick with the Mercedes despite the BOP going against the Mercedes, trying to bring it back into play. Now, with this being the only Mercedes entry, the pace just isn't there. There's not that big work of other teammates, other drivers in the car that you can pull information from. It is only this car at showing. They have been completely off pace all day today. They have made more pit stops than anyone else today. For this NWR Mercedes entry, it has been nothing short of a nightmare. So, you want to talk about something interesting here. VER Betrayed has gotten by NDL Dindu. He is now closing in on NDL Beats and NDL Avocado. So, VER Betrayed, despite being involved in that second lap accident there, in turns 3 and 4, there might still be a podium finish in the cards for Betrayed. And for the likes of Beats might say, hey, look, if I can't catch Avocado, which does seem like that might end up being the case, but if Beats can't get by Avocado, Beats might be fine with just letting Betrayed get by and let Betrayed catch Avocado and move by, so Avocado is a little bit farther behind in the overall distance and will give Beats' team potentially a bit stronger of a fight in trying to make something happen. And while the race timer says we are now in the final quarter of the event, remember there will still be 2 more stints later, and I will be covering stint 2 and 3 in the event. We are running significantly behind schedule today. I do apologize for that. So the gap between the end of stint 1 and the start of stint 2 is going to be very minimal. However, we will be here right away for the stint 2 run. We will also try to get interviews in with our top 5 finishers at the end of today's event. But there's still quite a bit of racing to go. Okay. So we're at about 26 and a half minutes, well, about 27 minutes left in the event. In my personal opinion, if you want to, you could pit at the end of this lap, throw on a set of medium tires, and go to the end. The mediums seem to last you about 25 minutes here. The softs seem to be about 13 to 16 minutes, depending on how aggressive and how far you want to push those tires. I think we will likely see most, not all, but most of our lead group make their final pit stop at the end of this lap. I think VER Betrayed will be the big wildcard differentiator. I believe that Betrayed is trying to run softs all the way through. So Betrayed's going to be trying to knock out some incredible laps on soft tires to outrun an entire extra pit stop. So we're going to be keeping an eye on that as this goes forward here. Dindu has not let Betrayed get too far away yet, but this fight does seem to be very much in Betrayed's favor for now. The big thing is, though, how many of our top 6 are going to elect to make a pit stop now? Well, Green and Moonrise stay out this lap. What about 36? Do any of them elect to pit now and throw on a set of mediums to the end of this race? No, no one's pitting yet. We look real quickly at the tire life of our top 6 on track. 35% here for Green, so he could honestly maybe make it a soft to the end when he finally pits. Moonrise, 33%. Actually slightly better tire life than Green, which is interesting. Avocado in 3rd. 25. So Avocado, way better on tire life, but that's mainly because he has been paying a lap later than everyone else all day long. 34% here for Beats. Then you have 5th place Dindu, who has just gotten back by Betrayed. I missed this. I apologize. He is at 36%. And then Betrayed, 43%. So Betrayed will likely have to pit very shortly here. If anything, Betrayed might be the one who will have to jump into the pits, throw on the mediums, and everyone else might have enough tire life left. They could go ahead and make their final stop and make it a soft tire. Betrayed might be the one who may have to make their final stop a medium tire just because the numbers aren't lining up super well here. Yeah, that is VER Spark, who has just gone a lap down. So I was wrong. I thought Spark was going to have enough pace to stay on the lead lap. That is not the case. VER Spark has gone a lap down now. The next driver who would be at risk of going a lap down would be Hilfiger, but he is basically an entire straightaway ahead of the leaders. I just don't see that happening. Although Hilfiger has had an incident at the top of the mountain that has caused him to bleed off a significant amount of time, I think Hilfiger should be okay enough. Spark is just not having anything close to a good time there in that Corvette. You see that Dodge Viper. Dodge is not a very fast car, but that Corvette bled off so much time coming out of the final corner, just struggling to get power down, that the Dodge Viper just went right by because there was no such issue with power application there. Again, none of our top 6 have elected to make a stop this time either. In the fight for 3rd, more of a grand stalking battle. Beats continues to run behind Avocado. Interesting thing to consider, Avocado has distance penalty, Beats does not. Let's do a little bit of calculations. I'm gonna pull up my phone calculator here, just to give you an exact idea. The difference between 3rd and 4th right now between Avocado and Beats, with it being 0.024 miles, that is 126.7 feet. So Beats needs to be within 126 feet of Avocado to steal 3rd. Could that be something that works out in NDL Beats' favor here? Avocado has kind of slipped back and falling back into Beats' grasp here. Beats does not necessarily have to get by Avocado. Just be running right behind. But again, the big thing is, what are the teammates? What are the other drivers who will step into these cars? What will they be able to do going forward? That is the wild card question. Still no movement from Beats yet. And still, no one in our top 6 have elected to make their final stop yet. I honestly thought Betrayed would have done it by now. Oh, and Avocado drops down to the dirt. Is that going to be all it takes? Beats has got to run. Boy, does Beats have a run. We're going to see them be potentially side by side as they come down to turn 2. Here they come over the hill. Not side by side, not yet. Nose to tail. Beats misses the braking zone and bleeds off time, though. A significant amount of time at that. So Avocado has a big self-inflicted mistake there. Beats is not able or willing to capitalize. And to be fair, you don't ever want to be on the outside going into turn 2. The outside of turn 2 is just death. It is so wide trying to be on the outside of turn 2. You will bleed off so much time. It's just not worth the risk. So for Beats, he's going to have to figure out a way to get by Avocado or get alongside Avocado, maybe at a different part of the track. Still a nose to tail at the top of the mountain. And now they rush downhill. "20 minutes left. Firedell making a pit stop. So a lot of drivers going to start knocking out their final pit stops here momentarily. We still are waiting to see when our top 7 will do so. Avocado's opened the gap up on Beats this time. Got a really good run onto the straightaway. And if you look behind, Didn't Do and Betrayed are starting to close in on Avocado and Beats. So we could have a 4-way here for third. It would be very interesting considering that Betrayed was nowhere near this group. And then Didn't Do has been completely derailed by having to basically outdrive another extra pit stop. But in the end, it seems like everyone's going to end up roughly where they should have been on pace. All right, Betrayed is the first driver of our top 6 to pull the trigger. He will pit with 20 minutes left in the event here. Real quickly, we look at ESV Green. 63% tire life. That's not looking good there. For F1R Moonrise, his tires are at 59%. So Moonrise a little bit better off in tire life. Avocado, who has been going deeper in the tire runs than anyone else, he's at 50%. If anything, Green may have one last challenge that he's going to have to deal with, and that may be that his tire numbers are not looking good right now. We may see Green absolutely struggling with dead tires at the very end of this event. NDL Beats, he's in the 60% range. NDL Didn't Do in 5th here. 65%. So yeah, we're going to see some of our leaders pit this lap, I would imagine. For Green, though, these numbers are not looking good. If he pits now, he would have to make the next set of soft tires last him about 17.5 minutes. That would be farther than just about anyone else has made work today. So Green's struggles may not be over. And the big thing for Green is that as all this is shaken out, Moonrise, who has better tire life and is right behind Green, might be able to pressure him. The big thing, though, and Green stays out another lap, so does Moonrise. Green is staying out another lap. Look at how worn his tires are. He's in the 70% range now on tires. Oh, the humanity. What is going on here? Second place, F1R Moonrise is pitting, though. So Moonrise pits before Green does. That's interesting. Beats will pit. Didn't Do will pit. Avocado stays out a little longer, though, as we anticipated. So where's Betrayed going to end up in relation to the NDL drivers he is fighting with? Moonrise comes out in 3rd. Not too much issue there. Betrayed has already been on his tires for a little bit. Beats, Didn't Do, both still in pit lane. There those 2 cars are, just coming out of pit lane. Betrayed puts the power down as he comes onto the uphill run. He's cleared Didn't Do. Can he clear NDL Beats? Beats trying to get his tires up to temperature here. Betrayed's got his tires up to temperature. Does he go and dive to the inside? Does he try and make an outside move work? Outside moves never work in turn 2, but is he going to be desperate? No, he's just going to stay in line for now. He'll stay behind NDL Beats for the moment. Into turn 3, the last overtaking spot until you get out of the mountain section. No moves by Betrayed. Not that time, not yet. What of ESV Green, who is just about to catch traffic in the form of our 15th place driver, NWR Zula. But Green will surely be pinning this time. He's at 77. He's going to be at 78% tire wear. And look at that field number. Field number is not looking good either. Is Green going to run himself out of fuel by trying to go one lap farther? Oh, he'll have fuel. Barely. Not much, though. But Green does make it into the pits. All right, Avocado, does he pit this lap or does he stay out a little longer again? No, Avocado pits this lap. Remember, Avocado is going to be found with the likes of Beats, Betrayed, and Didn't Do. Moonrise pitted a lap earlier than Green, had been doing good job managing their tire life. Where is Green? Oh, Moonrise has cleared Green. Moonrise is ahead of Green. And boy, is he ahead of Green. Look at how big this gap is. Green's just now come out. It's going to be tire life. Green has been massively better than everyone else throughout the entire day in pace. But as it's coming down to the end, the Dodge Viper's strength of just not tearing up the tires because it is so slow in a straight line, is that going to give the Dodge a freak win here? Not off the back of pace, although pace is put him in a position, but off the back of just that Dodge being so much better on tire life. One thing to consider, though, is that Green has no distance penalties. Moonrise does. If Green gets within about 200 feet of Moonrise, Green will still steal the stint win back. But he's only got about 6 to 7 laps to do so. Avocado is third, just ahead of Indiel Beats again. Then you have Indiel Didn't Do, and Betrayed has slipped back to 6. He has lost the ground to Didn't Do again. So we have a potential fight for the win and a four-way fight for third here at the very end. We're going to go ahead and knock out our last ad break, and when we come back, we'll be here to the end of the stint at Bathurst. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Bathurst. We are in the final stretch for Stint 1 here. Dindu has muscled it away by Beats, but both second and third place in the championship. That Ferrari and the Acura, driven by the Indiel team, they have lost ground to Avocado. Avocado is scooting away from this duo right now. There is a legitimate fight between Dindu and Beats for fourth. We are looking at, it could be a three-way fight, honestly, because if these two hold each other up enough, Betrayed, who we're right on board with, could sneak through and get some sort of fifth place finish, something to try and salvage their run after their lap 2 accident. But at the head of the field, things are getting really interesting. Moonrise leads. Now their tires are going to be more worn than Green, and this Dodge Viper does not have the ability to fight another car on track. And he's got distance penalties, but he has a gigantic gap on ESV Green here. Coming to the end, Green pushed the tires a lap too far on the final stint. He bled off a significant amount of time. And now, while Green has fresher tires, he is running out of time to close the gap down. There's only about 5 more full laps left in this event. Green will continue to close down significantly in the straights. The Dodge Viper that Moonrise is in is really good, though, in the twisties. Meanwhile, we look at this little fight for fourth. Dindu has gotten by Beats and is now running away from Beats. Beats still has no distance penalties if he can stay within Dindu's tire tracks, using the advantage that Beats has, the fact that he has not earned any distance penalties. It might put him back ahead of Dindu overall in distance today. Also, one more time before this is over, I do want to give a quick shout out to ZR Chrysalid. While they have generally gradually abandoned their strategy to minimize pit stops, they are on track for a 7th place finish. Be an absolutely fantastic run for them today in that Audi. Right on board, Betrayed. You can see NDL Beats ahead. Didn't do starting to scoot away into the distance. It seems that here at the very end of this race, Beats is struggling significantly here. Betrayed sucking up right behind that number 75. Reminder, Betrayed was the first driver out of our top 6 to make their final stop, so their tires are going to be hurting a bit at the end. Betrayed needs to pick up these positions as quickly as he can so he can just try to defend. He's got to run. Down into the chicane. Side by side, under braking! No, he's not. He backs out of it. He's not going to push the issue. Beats backs out of it. So Betrayed is by. Into 5th once more now. Only about 4 more laps left here at Bathurst. There goes Betrayed. And we'll try to count the gap between himself. 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005, 1006. So about 6.5 seconds between Moonrise and Green right now. Still, this duo continues to fight. Beats and Betrayed, slugging it out. And Beats is back by Betrayed now. And all the while, Dindu has scooted off into the distance. Same with Avocado in 3rd. Well, actually, Dindu could end up running down Avocado. That would be interesting, to say the least. Both of them have distance penalties, though, and Avocado has slightly less distance penalties than Dindu. So if Dindu catches Avocado, it wouldn't matter unless he can get by Avocado here. Zula looks like they're going to finish on the lead lap. Same with Firedale. Your drivers will be lapped out. At the end of this will be VER Spark, Rough Driving, P1R Coastal, and NWR Arkina here. 7.5 minutes left. This battle continues. Well, no, I shouldn't say continues. It is now picked up. Dindu has caught Avocado. Trying to go the long way around. Dindu trying to put himself back in a position. Remember, Dindu basically has to outdrive an entire extra pit stop early on. It's taken the entire event. But Dindu finally slips by Avocado here, just at the tail end. Now, can he open the gap? He needs to be about 20 feet ahead of Avocado in order to hold this position. About 20 feet is the difference between Dindu and Avocado in distance penalties right now. Good news for Green. F1R Moonrise is about to close in on lap traffic. In the fight between Beats and Betrayed for 5th. Beats has it, but Betrayed wants it. But Betrayed, his tires are falling off here. Nose to tail. Acura versus Corvette. As they ascend up the hill. We know that Betrayed is not afraid to put the bumper to somebody through the uphill corners, but it's a very high-risk move. Do you dare risk it if you're Betrayed? No sign of him trying it yet. Now the run downhill. The Acura will get up to its top speed faster, but the Corvette, we believe, is going to have a slightly higher top speed. Real quick, we look at the fight for 3rd and 4th. Avocado still holding on behind Dindu. If he can just stay within 20 feet of Dindu, he'll still be ahead of him in distance. between Beats and Betrayed now. Oh, that vet went deep. Maybe a little too deep under braking there. Bit of a twitch on exit by the Acura.
5 minutes remain.
Well, you heard the lady. 5 minutes left. Thank you, miss. As they pull onto the front straightaway again. There'll be about 2 more full laps left in the event. Dindu is opening the gap on Avocado. Slowly but surely. Can he dish Avocado? Put his team in a good position going into Stint 2. Again, Stint 1 is not where the money is going to be made. It's the culmination of all 3 stints. But if Dindu can get his team even a small advantage over Avocado's team, it might be enough to get the Ferrari to start closing the championship fight down. And your race leader, Moonrise, has just caught traffic now. On the run downhill. And because this Dodge struggles so much with making any kind of move on track, Green is closing. And Moonrise is not going to be able to dispose of traffic easily. But still, if Moonrise can be about 200, honestly the number's closer to about 185 feet ahead of Green, by the end of this, Moonrise can steal a Stint win. A very unexpected win considering how dominant Green has been today. But the Viper's biggest weakness, its inability to have great top end, has turned into its biggest strength. We've seen this in other series before. We've seen this in Tour Enduros that have the Dodge Viper. We've seen this in the ISC GT3 Championship. We've seen this in the Japanese Grand Touring Car Championship series. The Dodges in this game do not have great top end, and that is a good thing for them because while they can't fight for position on track, they just do not chew through tires because they aren't taking as much speed into the corners and the tires aren't being stressed nearly as much. This is Zula that is being pressured here by Moonrise. Oh, something's happened between Dindu and Avocado apparently. These two are back at it here. Avocado's right there behind Dindu. This is going to be the last full lap these drivers are going to get. Dindu outside, Avocado inside. That might be enough. You want to be on the inside. Dindu's in a bad place being on the outside going into turn 2. Avocado sends it around Dindu and goes back into third. Beat seems to hold station over Betrayed, but the fight for third is now on. This is the fight for a championship. Dindu needs to get back ahead of Avocado, keep Avocado behind, just to try and give his teammates something to go for, something to run off of in the next 2 stints. Not a great line there by either driver, but all of a sudden it seems like the momentum has massively swung in Avocado's favor. Has Dindu pushed his tires too far? Look at that 65% wear. I think he has. I think those tires have gone too far. For Green versus Moonrise. Green's at 58%. Moonrise is at, I believe, 64. 61. No, 64. Yeah, he's at 64. The gap now is rapidly closing down between our top 2. There's less than a minute and a half left. How much more can Green close? He's going to get another big long run in a straightaway. But the gap is collapsing with speed. Big slide by Green as he comes onto the start-finish straight. But his rear tire's at 61%. It's going to make it a little harder for him to get the power down in the straightaways. Less than a minute left. "45 seconds remain. Avocado is absolutely blitzed away from Dindu. And Dindu might actually get caught and overtaken by Beats here. Betrayed is far enough back, he won't factor into it. Green is almost there on Moonrise. They can hear each other's cars. 20 seconds remain. Somehow, Dindu is still ahead of Beats, but Beats with no distance penalty. No! Beats has cleared Dindu in turn 4. Turns 3 and 4. The last possible overtake section on the circuit. As they come to the end. Time's up. Over. Plow! And it will be Moonrise by just 3/100ths of a mile. Incredible job by Moonrise. We're going to knock out an ad break here. And when we come back, we'll try to talk with some of our top finishers here at Bathurst. Don't go away. All right. Hey, Dindu, are you able to hear me? All right, in the Xbox party, go ahead and include your audio if you can.
Yep, that's done.
All right, cool. Moonrise, can you hear me? Moonrise, are you able to hear me? Excuse me. Yes, I hear you. Moonrise, in the Xbox party, there will be a thing that says include my audio. Can you hit that? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Mount Panorama here at Bathurst. Stint 1 is over. Real quickly, I want to talk with our 5th place finisher, NDL Dindu. Things were looking good for you. You were leading laps early on, but then as the race went on, it just seemed like bad thing after bad thing, and you slipped to a distant 5th place finish at the end of the stint. What happened that derailed your day overall?
I think the rain. Yeah, I pitted just before the rain started, and yeah, I lost a lot of time. My pace in the rain wasn't that good either, and I kept making small mistakes. And at the end, I think P5 wasn't too bad. My pace at the end was alright, but my tire just started dying. So yeah.
All right, 2 more stints. Who's going to be taking over the car in stint 2 for you?
I'll be doubling, and then Hot Dog will be doing stint 3.
All right, we'll be keeping an eye on that then. Dindu, good job. Obviously could have been better, but good job pulling off the top 5. And while it's not the greatest, you're somewhat still in championship contention, mate. Good job.
Thank you.
All right, I want to talk with our race winner now, F1R Moonrise. Moonrise, fantastic win. I don't know how in the world you did that. You were involved in that lap 2 accident, and you came back to win the stint. How in the world did you do that? All right. Fantastic drive. Who's driving the Dodge in stint 2? All right, we'll keep an eye on that, mate. Congratulations on that win. Fantastic drive out there. You beat Green. That is so rare for anyone to beat Green, and you did that. I can't stress enough. That is incredible what you did. All right. Great job out there, mate. Go ahead, take a break. You earned it. Yep. All right, and with that in mind, that'll pretty much wrap up our broadcast here for Stint 1, but don't you worry. In about 15 minutes' time, might be a little less than that, but in about 15 minutes' time, we'll be back for Stint 2 here at Bathurst, and there we should see it go from night into the daytime. So don't you worry, we still have quite a bit more racing here for the GT3s at Mount Panorama under P1R's SEC Enduro Series. But until then, I've been your host for today's broadcast, Insane Layer 13. Thank you very much for joining us today. Farewell and goodbye, everyone.